I would say that at least half of the drivers that I pass in my car whilst I'm at traffic lights or at junctions are one way or another interacting with their mobile phone. They're either just looking at it or they are texting on it, or you can quite clearly see that it's in their lap. Or even if it's in a cradle, they are often somehow interacting with it. Now, in this video, I'm going to explain the very narrow exception between what is legal and what is not, with a classic example of what is absolutely wrong. Now, this is a point of quite significant debate. A lot of people think that this is just purely okay. Just like in a recent poll, 8%, not my poll, but 8% of drivers thought that it's safe and perfectly okay to exceed the speed limit. But most people agree that that's not the case. But I'm going to show you an example here. It's a relatively new, smallish channel here on YouTube. Go and check it out. Subscribe to it if you like this sort of content, just for entertainment, if not for the educational aspects. But this is Mr. Cliffcam, this channel here. So I'm not going to use too much of the video because that wouldn't be fair. You can go and watch it yourself. But just for the commentary on this small portion here, this is a truck, some sort of flatbed truck. Now, this is a queue of traffic, and Mr. Cliffcam, if that is his real name, goes alongside these vehicles, much like other cyclists do, and film them on the mobile phone and have a chat with them. And usually it ends up quite aggressive or sarcastic. Just take a very quick look at this, bearing in mind this is a truck. Clearly on his phone. Plain as day. What's the matter, mate? He says.
You're
What's the matter, mate? What's the matter?
the mobile phone.
Yeah, what's the matter? Come on.
The mobile phone.
Yeah, I see there's a mobile phone, mate. You're very observant. What's the matter?
Okay.
So sarcastic response. What's the matter? He says. What's the matter? The mobile phone. What's the matter? The mobile phone. Well, the matter is the mobile phone. It is an offence, even if you are sitting stationary traffic, even if you've got the handbrake on, even if you turned off the engine. If you are using your mobile phone and you're sat in traffic, that is still an offence. You're still breaking the regulations. Even illuminating the screen, checking the time, even recording a voice message or dictating a message, even if you're holding it. What a lot of people do is they hold it out like this on loudspeaker. You'll see them driving along like this, thinking this is okay because I'm only holding it out here. So I'm not holding it to my head and, it's not taking up my hand. Well, it is taking up your hand. It is handheld. Therefore, it is breaking the regulations. Therefore, don't shoot the messenger. You are going to get 6 points and a fine. Usually close to £1,000, but anything up to £1,000 or 2.5 if you're driving certain vehicles. But the 6 points is the bit that is going to upset most people, because if you've already got, let's say, 2 lots of speeding in a 30 for which you receive 2 lots of 3 points, you'll be on 6 points. And if you clock up to 12 points with one offence of having your mobile phone in your hand, you will clock up to 12 points and the court is obliged to ban you unless you can show exceptional hardship. But as you saw in this exchange here, this driver is just sarcastically responding.
Point out that there's a mobile phone.
No, that's all. I'm going to point out there's a camera on your helmet and all.
Oh, you've seen it.
All observe.
He says, I can point out that you've got a camera on your helmet, and we're all observant. And so just take the audio away, but this carries on, and obviously he takes the registration, he reports the vehicle, and bearing in mind this is a lorry, £220 fine, £198 in costs, and a 6-month disqualification. Presumably, because of the 6 points, has totted up to 12 points, and therefore the court was obliged to ban this driver from driving for a minimum period of 6 months. Now, this was obviously a work vehicle. He's not going to be driving this around for leisure, I don't think. So if you are driving for work, and driving is an integral part of your work, you are not just risking your driving license and then not being able to drive around. You are risking your very livelihood, because this guy clearly drives this lorry around for part of his work and now can't work. And so he might well lose his job because his contract of employment might well say you must have a clean driving license, or you must not be disqualified, or they might even specify certain offenses. You must not be guilty or found guilty of this offense. And so it might well be that he loses, or anyone in this position loses their job as a result of such a conviction. And if they lose their job, they might not be able to afford the mortgage. If they can't afford the mortgage, the house might get repossessed. And invariably, cases like this spill over into the family courts because there are such arguments between couples because one of them has done something like this, got points, got disqualified, can't pay the mortgage, risks losing the house. Then the next thing you know, there's a divorce and then fight over the children and so on and so on. And this spirals all because he was sitting there on his mobile phone. Now, lots of people might well argue that this is a perfectly innocent thing. If you're sitting in traffic, to have the phone in your hand just to check something, just to read something, or even to have a conversation on it. But it isn't okay. And the reason it isn't okay is because there are countless case studies where people do get injured, they do get killed because drivers are distracted for, up to half a minute to a minute after they've put the phone down and had that interaction. They remain distracted. And then in many cases, they do go on to a collision, which can be attributed to having that interaction with the mobile phone. So this is just a bit of a stark warning that this is not something that's going away. Whether you agree with it or not, I'm not here to debate you as to whether this is absolutely the right law. I'm not here to debate you as to whether you're supposed to agree with it or not. If not agree with it, and if not agree with the warnings about it, then at least it is a warning that this is not going away. If anything, the courts are going to apply these fairly consistently and fairly harshly. And if anything, Parliament is going to increase the penalties for such offences and make them tighter, make them more restrictive, because that's what's happened so far. The case where this was all turned over again was where a guy was filming a collision on his phone, and his argument that initially had a great merit to it, that he wasn't using it for an interactive communication purpose because he was just filming the collision with his phone. He wasn't using it for any interactive communication purpose. But that's where the regulations were changed to make it so restrictive that any device, if it is capable of any kind of interactive communication, whether those services are active or not, if it must be held in your hand at some point to do whatever it was you were doing on it, then you are in breach of those regulations. And there's a whole list of them. They include illuminating the screen, checking the time, drafting a message, reading a message, saving a message, anything like that. If you're doing anything on it, you're breaking that regulation. You are looking at a fine in the region of a few £100 to £1,000 in most cases, and 6 points, which in many people's cases is going to result in a 6-month disqualification. So that's the warning to you. I'm not here to lecture you. Don't shoot the messenger. This is what the law is. This is a very strictly applied piece of legislation and set of regulations. Credit to that channel, Mr. Cliff Cam. If you want to go and check out his other stuff, I will link that video in the description below. But in the meantime, please do drive safely out there. And as always, thank you for watching.